What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of What If You Could. And today's episode is with a good friend of mine. She's a fellow realtor, and I don't touch on realtors much, but um, I love Rebecca's story. There's so much more to it than just her real estate success and what she does. So, welcome, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm awesome, Gary. Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. We're going to have some fun. Let's open this
Okay.
up. But before we do, I'm going to go ahead and read Rebecca's bio. And Rebecca Sukulich, got it? Okay. With a passion for real estate and a commitment to excellence, Rebecca brings a fresh, innovative approach to every venture. Specializing in Airbnb management, Rebecca leverages her deep industry knowledge to create memorable experience for guests while maximizing property value for owners. Known for her inspiring vision and dedication, she is not only a leader in real estate, but also a trusted advisor to her clients. Rebecca brings a unique blend of first class service, deep market insight, and genuine passion for real estate. Specializing in residential, luxury, and investment properties across Southern California with Compass Properties, she offers an expert guidance on current trends and opportunities. Rebecca listens, understands, and acts decisively to align her clients' goals with their ideal lifestyle. Drawing on her expertise in investment and renovation, she helps clients visualize a property's potential and enhance the value in every detail design, expertise, and vision. Rebecca's commitment to excellence and her high touch approach consistently delivers exceptional results, transforming lives through real estate, which is awesome. Born and raised in Michigan, Rebecca attended Michigan State University, Spartans, studying geography and cartography. Her love for travel and exploring our vast landscape shines through her passion in everyday life. Whether she's skiing, sailing, rowing, surfing, or indulging in her love for musical theater, Rebecca's zest for life and boundless energy translates her work as a true real estate professional. With a heart full of love for her family and young daughter, Evan, who brings immeasurable joy. Rebecca's life is a tapestry of colorful experiences that fuel her passion for helping others. Okay, we can go home now.
Sounds great.
She's amazing. Who is this chick? She's the sass master.
Wonder who wrote that.
I don't know, but I'm glad you moved the camera because Sass Master was not Sass Master for the longest time. But Rebecca, thank you so much for joining me. I'm gonna open this up to you now, and I guess I just want to say, how did you go from geography and cartography, which you're gonna have to explain that one? I guess that's about the stuff you find in the ground, to movies and real estate. How on earth did that happen?
Oh, let's backtrack. Let's rewind it back into the mid 90s. So I did go to Michigan State, go Spartans, go Green. And while I was there, I was actually studying to be a lawyer. And I thought it was like the most boring thing out there. Forgive me, my friends who are all lawyers out there. But I'm more of a lover than I'm a fighter. And midway through my sophomore year, my favorite class was geography. I had my wisdom teeth removed and went to the professor to make up some exams. And he's like, you're really good at this. And there were 700 people in my geography class. And by the end of the third week, I was sitting in the front row. And this guy looked like James Earl Jones and he had a deep voice. And we just bonded. And he had me over. He said, "You know what? What are you studying?" And I said, "Pre-law, poli-sci." And he's like, "Oh, that's so boring." I go, "I feel the same way." He scribbled down a phone number. He's like, go call this woman for me and just go talk to her. Would you do that favor for me, for you not taking your 4 exams because of your wisdom teeth? So I made this phone call. I went over to the Department of Geography, spoke to this woman, and I felt like she offered me a job, except for she said, "Would you please come study geography?" They gave me a whole bunch of spatial relations tests and all these things. And she goes, "You have something that not a lot of people have, and that's that you are tangible and you have this spatial relations thing, and only like 1 in 1,000 people have it, and you have it. And we would love you to come join us." So
That
geography.
what's
Yeah.
cartography?
Cartography is the study of maps. It's map design. So
Oh,
cartographic. So I ended up going to art school when I was in Detroit. I went to the Center for Creative Studies while I was in elementary and junior high. I was on a full scholarship. My dad was an engineer at Ford, and so I just am able to build things, put things together. I can fix a bike, I can fix my vintage car, I can take apart a watch and put it back together. It was a born given gift. And so I went to art school while I was, a youngster going, when I was in regular elementary, junior high, and high school, and studied on the weekends. And my love for maps was born. And I probably have 1,000 maps. I just love them. So that's how the geography thing happened. It was fun to go to school for me. It wasn't a challenge. It was just interesting, and nobody had done it. And I had that idea of driving in a car. I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we had a big computer screen and it told us where to go? It was very Jetsons back then. And,
right.
I,
I love maps too. I mean, for the longest time, I had one of those National Geographic, like wallpaper maps. They're like eight
oh,
by
yeah.
12. They're freaking
Oh, yeah.
awesome. And I had an antique one, and I had the blue one, which is more realistic one. And it took up the entire wall in my office. And
Yeah.
I didn't even want to put furniture in front of it because I just loved that map so much of the world. Yeah, I love maps. I love traveling. My wife and I are scuba divers, and part of the training is you're supposed to be able to map out underwater, and so you don't get lost, so you don't die. And yeah, 44 years I've been diving, I still suck. I just can't map. I look at my compass. I
Well,
can't.
I come from this place where my mom was a driver. Like, she wanted to drive everywhere. She didn't fly anywhere. And here's my little fact about myself that should be in my bio, but I went to all 48 contiguous United States by the
Wow,
time I was 18 by car.
that's so awesome.
Drove everywhere, and my mom was like my mom and my grandmother were like walking history lessons. And back in the day, I remember her picking up the phone and calling AAA and asking for the maps and the triptychs and the books. And like literally she would plan out our whole vacation, and the triptych would come all highlighted from AAA. Makes me feel old because most 30 and 40-year-olds don't even remember what that is. And she would open the book and she would look for every Holiday Inn along the route, and she would only call them, and she'd call them up and say, she knew exactly how long it would take. So I feel like it was my mom who planted that in me, just the love of travel. And we would look for things like Cracker Barrel and Holiday Inns and all these fun places. So literally geography was just an extension of my childhood, and it was ended up being an awesome major. But you did ask me how I segued that to getting to California.
Yeah. So, whoa, wait a sec. So, because this is too good. So I remember, I can almost smell that blue Auto Club packet with all the maps in it, right? Because I used to love that thing in the glove compartment, right? We got the little sticker, and we got the blue pouch with the maps in it, right? And I loved unfolding those maps and looking around, stuff like that. So, you had all 48 of them then, right? I mean, you literally had 48 Auto Club maps of every state?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of them we didn't save because they were like they weren't the full maps. AAA did not send you a map of the United States. They said, "Where are you going?" And I'll just give an example. We lived in Michigan. We always went to Florida, so they would just send us, Michigan, Ohio,
Yeah.
Kentucky, Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and then each map would be a different part, and they would highlight the route so you knew where to go. And if for
That's
any reason
awesome.
we went off the beaten path, we would have to open up the triptych, which was the little thing on the spirals, and you'd open that up, and we would see the little tributaries, as I would call them in
Yeah.
geography, of other places where we'd go on the map. And if we got lost, there's only one thing to do: go to a gas station or a restaurant, and you would ask somebody, how do I get back to I-75, or how do I get back on, Route 23? And they'd say, down the street to the left at the gas station, take a right at the big orange sign, and
Yeah.
the highway will be in 5 minutes, or past the apple orchard. So it was like that love of like knowing where to go. And my mom was never afraid of like knowing where to go. She would just like get in the car. She'd call, those maps would come, and we would be off. It's like, I don't even think she planned, a month in advance. It wasn't like that at all. She'd just be
That's
like, okay,
awesome.
we're going to Williamsburg this weekend. And we're like, what's in Williamsburg? And she's like this, like, oh my gosh, we're going to go figure out
Right.
how we became a country. And, you're going to go and see little boys and drums, and a whole bunch of men in felt hats and things. And like, that was my life growing up. And I absolutely loved it. And I love travel. And I'm trying to instill that on my 7-year-old now.
Oh, I love
So that's
that.
how the geography thing came about.
Yeah, I love to travel too, but not many people have seen all 48 states, they just not many people have. But I think the coolest thing is that your mom would just, let's get everybody together, let's just head off and go, right?
Yep.
I mean, and you didn't have that annoying voice telling you turn right, turn left, do all that stuff. I know, it's coming up. Just stop telling me, right? And I always thought for mine, I want to change my GPS voice to Samuel L. Jackson,
Oh
right? To
yeah.
be like, motherfucker, listen. Turn left, motherfucker. Right? And he's just
I'm
all
sure
right,
you can
Sam.
fit him.
Right? If you're gonna have I think my wife changed her to some British guy, which is kind of cool because he's very polite. He's
Yeah,
very
my
polite.
my my
GPS.
my woman is Irish. I love her accent. She rolls her R's almost, Scottish Irish. It's amazing. But
Anyway,
she annoys me. I turn her right off. Like, I feel like I know where I'm going. It took me a long time to figure out where to go in LA. It took
yeah.
me 4 years to remember. We did not have Thomas guides in Michigan. So I did not know what a Thomas guide was until I moved out here, and somebody handed me this book that was like 3 inches thick. And it was a different way of looking at maps, and I had never seen one. And I thought the Thomas guide, I still have like 3 or 4 of them
Yep.
as like vintage icons in my house. And sometimes I just flip through, and it's really fun to see where things are. And I use them all the time, in my real estate career, because not
Well,
all the
what's
time.
what's funny is people who have not been in real estate very long, like I said, I've been doing it 35 years. Basically, you went to the Thomas Guide. You put it on top of the copy machine. You photocopied the page that you need, right? Because I didn't want to carry the whole Thomas Guide. And then you staple the amount of pages that you needed together with the property printout because we had a real estate book. You're way too young to know the real estate book, but we didn't have an MLS. So just every week a book would come out with the new listings in it. And so
Yeah.
we'd have it in the book. And then we'd have to photocopy the Thomas Guide, which was beautiful. So we had those two attached together. Nothing but joy. Nothing but joy. And then, of course, for us who used to door knock and cold call back in the day, we had the crisscross directory. Remember, did you even know a crisscross directory? Yeah, this is
Oh,
even before your time. Basically, people worry about privacy now, right? Back in the day, there was a book you could buy. It had your name, your address, your phone number, all of your information in it, and you can go down and just dial for dollars. That's which I used to do
wasn't that
all.
called the phone book?
It was not a phone book. It was a crisscross directory because it went street by street
Oh, got it.
instead of by name. So it wasn't alphabetical. So it was by street. So when you farmed an area, right? You farmed an area, you could just go down that street and go, I'm going to call everybody on, 123 Main Street, whatever. So it was awesome. But in any case, I digress. I'm old. Um,
Right.
so you're going to leave when you're going to graduate from Michigan State. You dumped law, thank God. How
Thank
horrible
God.
would that have
That's
been?
good.
And then did you graduate with a degree in geography?
I did, in geography and cartography, and two specializations in the geography of Africa and the geography of the United States and Canada. So I have two cognates besides cartography.
What were you going to do with it?
I didn't know, but my mother, I'll go back to my mom again. She always said, when I told her I was switching my major, like, I thought I was literally going to get my ass kicked. I mean, I thought they were going to be, I was going to be the one who did something with my life, and I thought they were going to be mad. And I told my mom, and she kind of scratched her head. And this is what she said to me: well, at least you could teach because she was a teacher. So I kind of thought the same thing, and that's what I could do. But when I was in college, I was actually by the same head of the geography department offered a job, and I went and interviewed about 90 miles back towards my hometown of Dearborn, Michigan in Livonia. I interviewed with the Michigan Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Environmental Quality. And they offered me a job when I was a sophomore in college, making more money. I mean, I was making, ready for this? This
Yep.
was in the mid 90s. I was making 27.50 an hour.
Wow.
Some people aren't making that now as a teacher in California. And so
Yeah.
to me, that was a lot of money. And I had to drive from Lansing to Livonia, which was about an hour and a half drive without any traffic. And I went 4 days a week. So I had this great experience where I worked in land and water management. And then we got this awful Republican, I don't mean to say it like that, governor that wanted to kill all things like earth friendly, like all the animals and fill in all the wetlands and build, 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 build. Now we have a great governor, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, but it wasn't like that. And so everybody was getting laid off. And my colleague said to me, you know, you'll graduate and they'll hire you and you'll have a great job and you'll work here the rest of your life. And where my brain said, wow, that sounds like a great plan, my heart said, oh, I don't want to deal with this BS for the rest of my life because I knew it was happening. I mean, people were bringing in like, dead deer with arrows through them and tagging animals and fisheries and wildlife. I mean, I experienced it all, Gary. And so I literally
Why
resigned.
were they why were they bringing dead deer into your
Well,
office?
because the Department of Natural Resources and Environmental Quality, they tagged animals for control and when they would like fluctuate the hunting season, like when you could hunt and when you could not. So they were trying to keep track of if you did kill an animal, you got to bring it in and you would take the tag off of its ear or something, and then that would give the department research on those animals. We have a terrible thing. I mean, in really big urban suburban areas of my hometown right now, I'm like, people are on the street. There aren't any more tractors, or anything, but there are deer walking up and down the street in my hometown because
That's
there's an,
awesome.
yeah, but
I
they eat
love
it.
deer.
We love deer, except for guess what? They get killed a lot by cars,
Yeah.
and we don't kill them really to eat because you don't really hunt in a city like that. You got to go out into the woods so you don't hurt somebody. So it's a big problem right now. They're trying to control the population. So
Yeah.
I'm
Friend of
not an
mine just moved from New Jersey just like 5 years ago. And she lived in New Jersey like 28 years. And she said the scariest thing ever is hitting a deer that comes just racing out from the woods, right? And just everyone who lives there is going to hit one
Yep.
once in their lifetime. And you can even buy these little sensors that you can put on the front of your car that sends stuff out so that the deer don't run in front of your car.
Yeah,
But
it's
she says
awful. There's
it's a
signs
nightmare. Yeah,
everywhere.
because they're beautiful, but they're also big animals and they'll hurt your car.
They'll hurt you and your car. And
They're gonna get hurt.
luckily,
Yeah.
you go 90 miles an hour, you're probably hurt your car and yourself. So
Yeah. Crazy stuff.
yeah.
So you get out of school.
So get out of school. I resigned from the DNR DEQ because of the new Republican governor. I mean, my friends tell me you're going to be locked in for life, or they're not going to hire you, or they will hire you and you'll be stuck here. And there was just like this little voice inside of me saying, I don't think I want to work for the DNR DEQ for the next 30 years, even though it's like a steady, stable job. I am not like a steady, stable person. It is like the antithesis of who I am and who my personality is. So let me rewind
You
this.
are not set for a county desk job, basically.
No. And even though it was super fun to go out and like go to like all these lakes and streams and look at boat hoists and build things and get ice cream and go to lunch with my colleagues, honestly, I was bored to tears. Like it was just going out, coming back, documenting. It was like not the life that I wanted, but I made really good money and I banked that. And that's basically what got me here. So let me flip back to Michigan State. When I was going to Michigan State, I had run into a friend over a Christmas vacation. And she went to school in elementary, junior high, and high school where I went, but was older than me, was my brother's age. And I ran into her at a bar, and she said, I just ran into your brother at our 5-year class reunion, and he said that you're at Michigan State. I'm there as well, getting my master's in women's studies. We should get together. And so break was over, and I went and hung out with her. And she's like, look, I want you to read something. And she threw me something I'd never seen before, which was a film script. And she said, I want you to read this. And I'm like, okay, why? So she said, just read it. So I went away, I read it. It really touched my heart, like emotionally, physically, every part of me. And I came back and said, I read it. She goes, what did you think? I said, it touched me in a place I didn't think I could be touched. And it's really amazing. Like,
Did you when she handed it to you, you knew it was a movie script?
well, she, it says it right on there. It's, you can see
Yeah.
the title, and
Well,
I
because
knew.
it's hard for a lot of people to read a movie script. I've read a lot of television movie scripts, and it's like he says, and then she says, and then so it's not like reading a book, right? I mean, it's a little more difficult than it doesn't flow like a book.
Yeah. And I knew that she was into the film program where we went to high school in Dearborn, Michigan. Our high school at the time was the only high school that had a video production studio in the high school. Now they have them all over, but 35 years ago, that didn't exist. And she was one of the first women who were in the program. And I ended up teaching at my high school in that production department after I graduated from Michigan State. So she handed me the script, basically gave me the pitch, and she's like, I want to make this into a movie. Do you want to help me? And that started not only a really still 30-year plus friendship that we have, but we fought and we single-handedly together raised all the money to make this feature film script. And we were the first 35 millimeter film that was ever filmed on Michigan State's campus. We had
Wow.
over 200 people, volunteers, students, filmmakers. We shot it really on real 35 millimeter, which is really expensive to do. And we got the university's permission, and the person who ran the university, his wife was really into the subject. And she was like, this is necessary. I support you ladies. Great job. Let's do this. So we started in 1994 and we finished in 1997. And long story short, the film was picked up for distribution in 1999 by Discovery. And it wasn't the reason I came here, it was the reason in my head that I should get out of Michigan. And I was teaching film, French, geography, and any other subject to make me more money. I was coaching varsity volleyball at a different high school. And a friend of mine kept calling me every day and said, you know what? You don't belong here. You're bigger than all of this. Come to California. Come to California. And she just wouldn't stop. And I credit her to the reason I moved. March of 1999, I told my mom and dad, like, look, I want to go to California. Do you have a job? No. What are you going to do? I don't know, but I want to go. And so we packed up the Volkswagen Beetle. We drove out to California. My mom was here for 2 weeks. We had a grand old time. She flew home. I stayed with my car. And within 3 weeks of me living here and staying with that friend who was from Michigan, I was offered a job at an educational production company, making 3 times the amount of money I was teaching in Michigan. So I honestly, Gary, thought I was rich. But
Yeah.
you didn't make much as a teacher in Michigan in the 90s. So I didn't realize that the cost of living here was so expensive. And, a gallon of milk was twice as much as it was in Michigan. Apartment rents were 4 times as much as they were in Michigan. So all that money really wasn't that much money. But that's how I got out here. I got a job. I flew home for my kids' graduation, saw them, hugged them all, went back to California. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to stay this summer. But I got this job. So I never went back. And
Wow.
here we
Wow.
are,
And then
25 years
there was a
later.
second friend who did a movie, Ladybuds, but that wasn't something you were involved with, or was that one
I
also
was.
something
Lady
you were
Buds is right
involved
behind me, right
with?
there.
The Ladybuds back there, right? So, but they weren't related. It wasn't like you were in the movie business, right? It just
No,
she brought
the
this to
director
you.
of that movie, Chris Russo, is one of my best friends, and she was the producer, the director, the writer. It's a documentary film. It's amazing. She worked on it for almost 5 years and roped me in. Didn't rope me in. I wanted to help her, but when you make a doc, it's not like making a scripted feature. I mean, it is a labor of love, time intensive, hundreds and hundreds of hours of filming with no script. And so the story that Chris had pitched me about Ladybuds, what she pitched me and what was made actually were two different things. And what was made, I think, was so much better and more amazing than I could have ever imagined. And the film got picked up for distribution. It had a theatrical release, and we went to film festivals all around the country and had this wonderful little run with Ladybuds. And you can watch it right now on many platforms of your choice when you Google it. But did you end up watching
What
it?
is Ladybuds about?
What's Ladybuds about? Ladybuds is the story of a group of women in different places in California, New York, and all over the country, and sort of what happened to them. They were in the cannabis industry one way or the other by marriage or family or whatever, however they got into the cannabis industry, and what happened to them when cannabis got legalized. And it's not the story you think, and I don't want to give it away because people who are my age to your age to our parents' age, they are like the demographic that really loves it. The younger generation doesn't get it because they never had to live in fear of it's legal now. I mean, you can walk on the street and buy cannabis, you can buy it at the grocery store or 7-Eleven or wherever, and you can possess it, and it's not really a big deal. But now it's taxed, it's part of a commodity, like it's going to become even worse than alcohol and how it's taxed, and it's a whole political movement, and that isn't really my forte. That's Chris's thing, but I supported her and the cause 100%, and I literally got involved in something I knew nothing about. And it's not really my thing. I'm a drinker, I'm a wine person. Wine is my happy, not
Right.
cannabis. But I support this. And now seeing what these women went through and what's happening now, it's an entire movement. And that's one reason. Another reason is my best friend, who is no longer with us, his name is Scott Imler. He co-wrote Prop 215 with Dennis Perone, which is the legalization of marijuana for medical purposes. So he co-wrote that prop. And for 20 years, I was with him as a friend, as a colleague. And he was arrested. He ran the first LA CRC, the Cannabis Resource Center. He was indicted by the DEA. He went to jail. He got cancer, survived cancer. He got married. I was his best woman in his wedding. And then everything sort of got shut down. He made it through cancer, and then he passed away. And we put a little homage to him in the film, but he's one of the reasons why people who are suffering from a terrible disease like cancer, that he survived and that he could eat and he could get on with his life. So I saw cannabis from a different perspective of a healing place. And to me, I watched him be okay and save a lot of people's lives. And that was like one of my reasons. So I matched up Scott with Chris, and unfortunately, he didn't make it as far as we wanted to, but he was a huge inspiration for me, wanting to put my heart and soul and my hard-earned money and just my soul into supporting my best friend and her work. And the film is really great. I hope you watch it, and I
Well,
would love to talk about
I'm
it.
gonna look it up and watch it. Like I told you, I have a friend, Facebook friend, who came on the podcast, and she and her partner were the number one. Uh, they started this huge vape company, and she grows a ton of weed. Um, like it's legal, so I
Colorado.
give Colorado. Yeah, I don't remember the name of her company, or I'd pimp it, but. But anyways, yeah, it's not a great industry for women. It's tough for women to break into that industry, like a lot of different industries. But yeah, I'm sorry about your friend, but I'll tell you, when I had cancer, and I haven't smoked weed since I was in high school, right? So like 800 years ago, I smoked weed, and it would be a five-finger lit a commercial from Mexico. I mean, I don't even know what we were smoking, but um. So my son, when I was going through the cancer, Dad, get gummies
Yeah.
and try them for because I couldn't eat, right? So it would help with the pain because Vicodin sucks. And so it helped with the pain and it helped with the appetite.
Yeah.
You gave the munchies. So, but since I'm a lightweight, I'd take one serving or whatever it was and cut it into six pieces, and I'd eat one of the six just so I can get the munchies, right? But it made all the difference in the world to be able to want to eat when you're going through radiation and chemo. So, I know it's legal for more than just medicinal anymore, but it's a big deal for people who are going through different treatments because a lot of the like Vicodin and crap like that sucks. It's really tough on the body.
And I'm not, again, I'm not a proponent for, like drugs in general, but I think cannabis is really misunderstood. And it is a plant. You don't hear of anybody dying from cannabis, especially like smoking it. It doesn't have the same properties as tobacco, which has been known to kill people. So you just don't hear about that. And I think there needs to be a lot more education and resource, and there's a time and there's a purpose for it.
Well, there's a
Um,
lot to it. I mean, there's just the straight CBD, which helps for
yeah.
pain, and then there's the hemp. I mean, we could replace so many, save so many trees and replace so many different things. Clothing, hemp clothes are awesome. I've had a bunch of hemp clothes.
So comfortable. There's a whole movement, and I hope we see a future where cannabis is, better understood than it has been in the past. It got a really
I
bad
think,
rap.
yeah, I think that we will. I mean, it's kind of a big deal as far as it continues to grow. But so you're a geographer, you're a film. By the way, okay, when you watch a movie or a television show, right? It says producer, executive producer, backup producer. There's like 900. There's more producers than actors in a lot of these movies. What the hell does a producer do? What does a producer do, and why are there so many of them?
Well, there's in my world, in my opinion, there's two types of producers: the ones that do and the ones that write checks.
Ah,
So if you're an executive producer, your name is usually the first one up, and that's usually the person who's either written the biggest check, given the most amount of money, or raised the most amount of money. And usually, like in our big world, you see a lot of the big names as the executive producer because they're funding their own projects, or they're going out and creating the money to happen through some way. So that's an executive producer. A working producer, the one who has the producer title, is the one that puts together the entire film. They are responsible for hiring everybody and putting the whole film together, making it go from the script to everything, all the prep that goes into, making the film happen, to the actual filming days, the days on set, and scheduling all that, hiring everybody, every single person. And
wow.
there's different steps. So there's, producers, there's co-producers, there's associate producers, there's line producers, above the line, below the line. It's a myriad of people. And now it just takes so many people. There's thousands and thousands of people that work on a feature film. And it takes a village. So there's usually not one producer, there are many, because you have so many responsibilities. And sometimes there's even producers in different locations, because you're shooting, let's say, you shoot half of it in California, but you shoot the other quarter in England and the other quarter in Utah. You'll have on-site producers there that are handling like what's on the ground, and it makes perfect sense. So
Wow.
that's the difference between an executive and a regular producer.
So no wonder there's so many of them.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It takes a village. I mean, you ever watch the credits in a movie that cost $200 million to make? The credits are like 25 minutes long. They just keep scrolling. It's like the intro to Star Wars, like in a galaxy long, long ago. It just keeps on
Yeah.
scrolling and scrolling, and just thousands of people that are involved in the effects and the visual work. And now we're pulling AI and all this stuff into movie making. And I don't know. I'm a little worried about the state of the union for film and what's happening to it. We're in a different world now with streamers and platforms, and the TikToks and the Snapchats and all of that. We'll see what happens. The industry's
Well,
not.
I mean, when you think about it, it's kind of like this podcast. I mean, podcasts are just taking off all over the place. Um, and people just don't watch TV. I mean, they go to YouTube. People just YouTube, watch everything on YouTube. And then, like you said, you got the Netflix and the TikTok, and you've got the Amazon TV, iPod, Apple TV. I mean, there's more content now created than in the history of the world. There's probably more content produced in a day than there used to be in decades at a time. It's pretty crazy, but there's still more calling for it. There's still more thirst for it. It's really
And there are
crazy.
more people, and we want to touch people. Like, back then there was like you remember at the movies on the weekends, there only like one or two movies opened a month, and that's what was at the theater, just that movie, and you could only go see that movie. Now you go
Yeah,
to movie theater, there's 18, 20 movies, and they're playing for a long time, and you go in and there's like five, six people in the movie theater.
because they
So,
all suck. I don't think I've been to a movie in 5 years. I don't
I
think I've been in my wife dragged me to the worst movie I'd ever seen in my life about 5 years ago. It
Saving
was
Private Ryan.
what
No,
was that?
I was gonna say Saving
No,
Private Ryan. Just
no,
joking.
it was one of those Avenger movies, one of those, and it was so horribly bad. I was like, I'll never get that 2 hours left out of my life. I'll never get it back. But um, so back to you because you're more important than all this other stuff. So we did the geography, we did the movie producing, we picked up and like in your own movie when you do the movie your life one day and write your autobiography. I picked up and just drove to California, which is complete madness. You hooked up. What was your first job when you got here? I didn't hear it real well.
Well, actually, my first real job was my friend who called me to tell me to work out here. Her dad was somebody really important in our hometown. He was the president of the Automotive Hall of Fame, which was a big deal. And he had
Yeah.
uh, ex-girlfriend who was ran a temp agency out here, and they were still her parents were divorced, but this ex-girlfriend was still in touch with them. So he put us in touch with her, and she got my friend and I a whole bunch of jobs. So we like temped for a while all over town. I ended up working for Leonardo DiCaprio. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but
Why not? If you did, yeah.
he had a production company, and the production company doesn't exist anymore. And they were working on The Godfather Part 6, and it never happened. So
Part six?
yeah, that was kind of way back. Well,
Yeah,
that was
I've
in
never
the
seen
past.
even I've never seen any of the Godfather movies, so I don't have a clue. But I'm probably the only
Yeah.
one in the world that hasn't seen them.
Well, it was a short-lived job, and it was just a temporary thing. But my first job that I got offered was at an educational production company, and I ended up being there for almost 6 years. And they gave me they were the first company to do a distance learning master's degree. And now you can go to online college all over, but this was like VHS tapes, and you had a professor, and you had colleges in certain regions around the country, and because I was from Michigan, they assigned me to Michigan. So they sent me back on an expense account, driving a Crown Victoria around Michigan, and I got to take my mom with me or my grandma, and we would drive all
That's
over, and I would go
awesome.
and present to these teachers and pitch them on getting a master's degree via distance learning, so they could go and have their lives, travel, have their spouses, have their children, and then get a VHS tape in the mail, pop it in the VCR, and then once a week get on. There were no Zoom calls, but there were conference calls with a whole bunch of people, and they would get on a conference call and talk about it. And then they would take actual tests and write papers, and they would mail them to the professors, and that's how they got their distance learning degree and a master's program. So
That's
it was a
awesome.
really fun job, and I was part of the team in California that made that happen. And now they're nationwide, and they've segued into a bigger company called Laureate Education. And you hear about them everywhere because they still do it in most of the states that I'm aware of. And I still have some friends that are still there, and I'm still friends with about 30 people that I used to work with 25 years ago.
That's
So
awesome.
I
That's
stayed there, and now you're going to ask me how I got from there to here, right?
Nope.
Nope, nope.
I want to know about the you are very active. You said you do skiing and sailing and snowboarding and I'm not snowboarding, but you're very active. So have you always been very active?
Yes, I grew up in Michigan, where we were outdoors people, and we were constantly on the corner of every street where I'm from in Dearborn, Michigan. We had a hockey rink. They poured water into the ground and they made an ice rink. And so from the time I was 3, we were on skates. So I played hockey and we ice skated and I went skiing. I have 2 older brothers, and so being the only girl, it was very competitive. So I lived in a world of all boys. So I played all these sports growing up. I played soccer, I played basketball, volleyball. Um, I actually was on the track team. I was a captain of the track team in high school because I was like the star shot putter and discus thrower. And I was just always doing something with sports and just wanted to be like the boys and my brothers and wanted to be the best that I could. So I was always involved. And my favorite sport is skiing. I mean, I'm on skis and I feel like I'm flying. And my second one would be sailing because when I'm in a boat, sailing actually in the water, gliding across it, feel like I'm flying. So
Oh man.
2
Yeah, I
things
love
I love
both of
that
those
use
myself.
both often.
I love the water, whether it's frozen and I can snowboard on it, or whether I'm on the ocean and I'm
Yeah.
underneath it scuba diving or sailing. I just love
Yeah.
it all. I just love it all. So, how did you transition out of all that? How did you find yourself in real estate?
So when I was working for that educational production company, was involved in a women's organization that was involved in women filmmakers, and I had met this woman, and she had pitched me on an idea as a writer director of another film about a subject that was similar to my first film that I did at Michigan State. And again, I sort of read this script, and she got a couple people of notoriety involved. And I don't want to say because it was like there was a whole thing, lawyers in the whole 9 yards, but it was somebody really famous. So a name like everybody knows. Like if I went to France, they would know this person's name. Like everybody knows who this person was.
They're
And
famous, is what you're trying to say.
yes, famous and very, very wealthy. And so this person got involved with our film and was the executive producer. So they were going to write the big fat check to get the film made. And so for 2 years of my life, I worked on that film as the producer with my friend who was the director. And 2 years into working in the film, so I didn't have another job. I had quit the production company. I'd saved all my shekels and I had, money in the bank. And so 2 years, I didn't have any money coming in. I had a
How?
few like side hustles, like I was selling some stuff on eBay and I was, mowing some lawns and doing some other things, but I didn't really have any money coming in. And so 2 years into it, this really famous person decided that they were going to get even more famous and they were going on a tour around the world and sort of just left us high and dry. I'd like to say something a little bit more negative, but I won't say it. They left, and that left me in a position of the film is not going to get finished because how can we go from having all of this to starting all over again? I
Weren't there
couldn't.
contracts and stuff? Can you just pick up and bail on everybody?
Well, when it's the person that was paying for everything, you
Oh,
know,
yeah.
it was more of like they wanted to be involved. Like if I inspired you by saying something today and you came back to me and said, Rebecca, I really want to be involved in this project that you're doing. It's not because I asked you, it's because you wanted. This person wanted to be there. So back then we were younger and naive and things aren't like they are now. Yes, I now if it's not in writing, it does not exist in my world. So everything's in writing now. I learned that lesson the hard way. So I was at this place, this crossroads. I had to make the decision. What am I going to do? And the director of the film actually was like, look, you know, I'm in part of this other community and we met these people and they're very successful and they're in real estate. You should go talk to them. And I said, no way, I'm not going to do it. And she's like, do you want to eat tomorrow? And
I'm
no,
not a realtor.
yeah. And her dad was in real estate in a different state. And so she'd grown up in the real estate industry. So reluctantly, I went and met with them. They offered me a job and I said, "Thank you so much. I do not want to do what you want me to do." And we ended up really connecting and we hugged it out. I said, "So nice to meet you. I've got your number. You have mine. I'm sure we're going to cross paths again sometime in life." 3 days after that meeting, the husband in that team called me up and said, "We just cannot stop thinking about you. There's something about you, something so dynamic. I don't care what we have to do. We want you. How much do you want to get paid? And please help us. We won't do what we asked you to do, but will you help us build offices and create this real estate empire?" And
Wow.
Not to say that I was desperate, but when they switched things up and empowered me in a different way and offered me more money, it was really hard to say no to go and work with somebody who inspired me rather than for somebody who basically was going to leave me high and dry. So
Well,
it's
yeah, and plus you haven't had a freaking paycheck in 2 years. It's like, hey man, money sounds good right
yes.
about now. I can only eat so much freaking top ramen. Let's go.
Yeah. And I realized it was really a nice mix of I can learn something new, never in my life. And here's me, not going to get my license, not going to be a real estate agent. This was something
So
different.
what
So
did you do for them unlicensed? What
yeah,
did you just
so
run their team?
no, actually, not at all. They were building offices. And so they hired me as their director of operations, which was, a title that they sort of made up for me. And it was my job to help them open another office. And when you work for a big corporation, I'll just give you an example like McDonald's, there is a manual, there is a way, a modicum how to do things. And they hand you this manual saying, this is where the front door goes. This is where the training room is. This is where the kitchen is. Now go and build it. So my little niche was I was able to help these folks take a model and pick it apart like a film script. And I feel like that's where everything came together for me, came to fruition, is that I was able to help them find a way to sort of cut out the general contractor who was charging a lot of money. I could look at budgets all day long and I was looking at these budgets. I'm not going to say I was the sole genius, but I was like, what are you paying all this money for to build a building? Where is this money going? Because that's not how much it costs. And so I was able to figure out instead of hiring the general contractor, I could just hire the subs, buy the materials, and save them a whole bunch of money. And I ended up doing that 19 times.
Wow.
19 offices from all the way in down in Newport Beach, all the way, up to Beverly Hills and everywhere in between, Palos Verdes and Culver City and Marina Del Rey and Santa Monica, all these places. And I was able to put together the whole team, the package. And again, I was part of a big team, but I was helping them put the phone systems together, put the internet together, put the desks and sub contract all these things out and literally every
Had you ever built anything before or contracted anything before?
besides my dad shoving me under the car of the 1956 Mustang Fastback and changing the oil and know how to take a watch apart and put it back together. No, I mean I'm
So
good with my hand.
do you think the movie producing, do you think trying to being able to structure putting a movie together, do you think that helped you with putting the offices together? I mean, where did this
A thousand
talent come
percent.
from out of nowhere?
1,000%. So, I mean, it's one of my greatest gifts and probably one of my downfalls is that anything I really touch, I put my whole heart into. And if I don't know how to do it, I figure it out because that's what happens when I'm the youngest of three with two brothers. And, one of my brothers is gorgeous and an overachiever was like the star quarterback and all of that stuff. And you're constantly trying to play catch up. So it was my job to figure it out. It would have been a lot easier now with the age of the internet to figure it out. But back then, I asked a lot of powerful questions. I literally talked to people and I shadowed people and they were building an office up in Beverly Hills and that was like my first one. And so I kind of just went up there to Beverly Hills with these guys and it was me and these men and it was awesome because I could see exactly what they were doing and I was able to like deduce what wasn't working. And I feel like that's where my skill set came in of, and maybe a little of the geography, the cartography, like putting pieces together to form something else. And the light bulb is like, I just knew my next door neighbor did tile. And I know that's not how much that costs. If I go to the store and I went to the store and bought tile and I paid my guy this much, the quote says it was $50,000 and I can do it for 3,000. That's a $47,000 savings. And everybody kind of looked at me like I was crazy and I was dumb and I was blonde and like, what do you mean? Well, we can't do that. Well, what if we could? And so again, I'm not saying I'm the genius behind it, but I was able to take somebody looking at something one way, a way that a book said, but these were franchises. So when they handed you the book, it was just your job to execute. You can't change the formula for the French fries and how the hamburger's put together, but you could sure change your location and your aesthetics as long as you stayed within a certain thing. So I not only made things happen, but I made them look better. I wanted a certain look. Like when you walked in the door, I feel like I have that gift of art and design where you want to feel welcomed. You want to walk in the door and you want to feel like you're at home, not, in a corporate office where you don't want to work. And so they were building these offices for real estate agents. So if I was going to walk in the office, wouldn't you want to walk into some place that was like cool? I think of it like a WeWork. WeWork, are they still around? But do you remember going into a WeWork and going, wow, there's like kombucha on tap and there's like, beer in the fridge and there's
And a
snacks.
ping pong table and a pinball machine.
And it wasn't anybody's office. You actually paid to go there, but everybody wanted to work there because it was fun. There was food. And I kind of felt like I really wanted to create that for agents, because why would an agent want to come and work for a real estate company if they didn't feel good? And so I was part of this, I feel, movement to create a community. So that's what I did for a while. I ended up building 19 offices, and the natural transition is these same folks came to me and said, hey, we need to get more people in the chairs here. So we're going to open a real estate school. And we'd like your help because you've been so great at everything else. Help us open this real estate school. Oh, but you need to get your license. And I was like, I don't want to get my license. So they paid for me to get my license. I'm going to say something I've never said before, and I'm going to come out. Ready?
Uh-oh.
I didn't study. I didn't do anything. The books came, they sat on the shelf, and I walked in to take the test and I failed. And
Uh-oh.
like literally
We'll
took it.
edit that out.
Well, I took it personally,
No,
and
I'm
that
kidding.
didn't make me feel good. And so I'm like, wait a second. Everything that I thought this was going to be, it wasn't. So the overachiever in me went back and I studied for 6 more weeks. I took the test, I passed, and then I was like, okay, I'm never going to do anything with this. We had the real estate school. Nothing really happened. It didn't really work how they wanted to. That was like the old model, like 40, 50 years ago, that doesn't work anymore. And I ended up working for escrow and a bunch of other things. And then boom, my license, I got it in October of '07. It's exactly when we know now the market crashed for the
Wait,
big.
so what year did you get your license? 2007?
Correct.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
So did you get into the short sale wave?
I did. I did. And nobody knew what a short sale was, and literally got my license. And the weekend after I got my license, I actually went and got certified as a short sale specialist, and I took this mass course. And I really was like, wow, that is so cool. They're going to let people out of their loans, and it's not going to affect their credit, and they're going to be able to buy a house in 2 years, even though they haven't made a mortgage payment in, I don't know, 5 years. Wow, maybe I could really help people. So I ended up joining, I did a little bit of real estate. I ended up joining a short sale team. They were closing about 30 transactions a month. And I learned how to negotiate short sales, and then ended up saying that wasn't my highest,
Wait,
best
wait,
use
wait,
of
wait.
time.
You were closing 30 transactions a month?
No, I wasn't. I was on a team that's
Oh,
what they're
okay. I was gonna
specialized
say
for.
that's a
I was
lot.
part of that team, and that's how I learned how to do short sales.
Yeah, short sales were one of my favorite things. I mean, I loved when clients would come to me and say, "Hey, man, or I'd reach out to them and say, "Guys, are you okay?
Yeah,
You bought that house for 600,000 and it's worth 50,000.
yeah.
You did 100% financing. Are you guys all right?" And they're like, "No." And this guy says if we give him $3,000, they'll help us do a loan modification. I'm like, no, do not give that guy $3,000. I will help you do a loan modification for free. I love you guys, right? So let's try a loan mod. And I'd get a bunch of people loan modifications, easy peasy, right? Bank of America, if they took over, the countrywide loans, Wells Fargo was a bitch. Wells Fargo sucks. Sorry, Wells Fargo. But most of the other companies were pretty good at loan mods. But if they absolutely just couldn't get a loan mod, then I'd say, do you want to try the short sale? Right. And I loved them. I love jigsaw puzzles. They're just like a big jigsaw puzzle. But so
And
did you do the loan modifications too, or just the short sales?
I did a couple, but I fell in love with real estate during short sales. I didn't want to be a salesperson, but what really like tickled my fancy was helping people. And I like when you're on the verge of having two children, three children, and a wife or a husband, and you're going to lose your $1 million house because you lost your job or whatever happened. And I was able to get them into a new property, whether it was renting another house or an apartment, and it not affect their credit. Those people ended up being my most loyal customers and clients. And I have sold them two, three, four houses over the past 20 some years. And they've given me more business than I could have ever asked for because I feel like I saved them. Maybe didn't save them. I saved them from something worse than it was. And I gave them hope with dignity and got them out
Yeah.
of it. And they didn't have to scramble and have their locks changed because I was on the foreclosure side too. I didn't do a lot of foreclosures, but I was certainly
Not
there
fun.
when a lot of my clients lost their houses. And that's something that you either bounce back from or you don't. And more people I know didn't. And after they lost their houses, it took them 15 years. They're still not okay. And here we are. So I love doing short sales. I'm glad they sort of don't exist anymore, although I have a feeling there might be a wave coming sometime soon with the interest rates where they're at. But it's where I fell in love with real estate. And to get from 2007, where the market crashed, after the market crashed, there was no more work. Nobody was building any more offices. Nobody was starting anything new. Escrow, title, that was all sort of going downhill. And I remember my bosses telling me, look, we can't afford to pay you anymore. I was on a draw. And for every house I was selling, I'd have to pay them back. He said to me, you have a choice to make. You can either get your license or take your license and do something with it, or you can go back to being a film producer. And I went to the beach. I wrote down on a piece of paper. I burned it up to the heavens. I prayed on it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try. Because every time I try to do something, it actually usually works out. So that's what I did. I made that decision in January of 2010. I took a class that our company was offering. It was this wonderful acronym. And 3 weeks into that class, I was doing what I was told to do. A call came into the office, and it was a gentleman. And he said, I need help with a short sale. And guess what? Crickets. Nobody knew anything about short sales, but I had taken that class and I had done so many short sales. I knew more about short sales than I did about regular residential real estate. This guy took his listing. It was my first listing ever with my own name on it in Beverly Hills. And I closed it in 21 days from contract to close, negotiated, brought in a lawyer partner friend of mine, and the bank gave me a bonus. And I got this paycheck, Gary, and I was like, I just made more money in 3 weeks than I did
And
the entire
the
last year.
crazy thing is that is like record pace. Because like I said, I've done hundreds of short sales. And I love when the bank goes, oh, by the way, there's a bonus to you for getting this done. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute. You guys are losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're going to pay the 6% commission and you're going to give me a bonus on this?
Yes.
Well, I'll do these all day, man. How many do you want me to do?
All day long.
And the really crazy thing is, most of my short sales came from agents referring them to me because they didn't want to do them. They're like, these are too hard. These are a pain in the butt. I
It
got
takes
other stuff to
long.
do. I'm like, dude, there isn't anything else to do. You either have an REO account with the bank, which I had three different REO accounts for foreclosure, get their foreclosures, or you do short sales, right? I mean, you get to asset resolution company and you get on their list and you just start getting all these short sales sent to you. What else are you going to do unless you just want to represent buyers all day, which is cool too. But so then you get your license, you're rocking the short sales. The short sales start petering off because things kind of stabilize after 127 years. And you say, I see a niche here that I'm attracted to. What was that new niche that you found?
Well, I was finding that people were calling me after they were losing their houses, and their places were kind of a mess. And so, if I negotiated the short sale and got them out of that, I got a lot of calls trying to save people. And how can we do this to make more money? So, short sales were now over. And I was luckily on a silver platter. I don't know how I was been so lucky, so grateful and blessed to have this gift given to me. And it was a colleague friend of mine called me up and said, I'm going to lose my house. Can you help me? And I was like, yeah, I can figure this out. So I negotiated that short sale deal. I called an agent like you who I had known as a friend and said, hey, Gary, do you know of anybody who wants to, buy this, short sale? Got this friend involved, brought the buyer, and then they pulled me back in after it was all over, after they purchased it, saying, okay, now what? Should we rent it out? Should we sell it? What should we do? And I helped them analyze the numbers and everything like that. And I said, well, this place is great and we're kind of out of it right now. If you put a little bit of money into it, it could be worth a lot of money. So I helped them figure out how to put, like, I think it was like $12,000 into this little tiny property. And the paycheck after selling that was more than that person had made in an entire year. And the jaw dropped on the floor, and I just hit rinse and repeat doing that over and over again. So my first ones were really little, 10, 12, $15,000. And back then, anyone who was losing their house, the short sales ended. So it's not like there was any arm's length transactions or any baloney like that. But what was happening is my clients didn't have the money to fix them up.
Yep.
So the brilliant idea I had was, well, what if I were to help them? So two things happen in my world. I didn't have a boatload of money, but I had some money, but I had something that people don't think about. I had great credit. And I had some credit cards, and I had made a movie where I charged the movie on like 70 credit cards. So I knew what it was like to how to rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
So I figured out how to fix up a house on credit cards from Home Depot and a whole bunch of other places for a little bit of money. And then I found some really good guys to help me that I would be, that'd pay cash to. And so that's how it started. And I loaned my customers the money payable at the close of escrow. And I charged them a very, very tiny, well worth it fee in order to do that. Payable only if the house sold. So I was putting my money where my mouth was. I was so confident that this was going to work. And it did. And I've done dozens and dozens and dozens of short sales. I've done dozens of remodels, and I've done dozens of flips, and I've done dozens of remodels for my clients. I just finished my 79th remodel, and I'm about
Wow.
to do my 80th. And every single time money goes in, and when I was loaning it to them, that was great. But it got to a point where $20,000 wasn't cutting it, 30 wasn't cutting it, 50 wasn't cutting it, 100. So I wasn't money bags, back then. I didn't have the money to loan. And so I was bridging
That's a
gaps.
lot. That's a lot of money to put out because it's still on a speculative
It
thing.
is.
I mean, it's still, you've got way more skin in the game than they do,
Yeah.
in reality, right? So, I mean, that's a pretty speculative
But I
jump.
can see at the light at the end of the tunnel. I remember doing this one house, and I'll just give you a quick example. Like, I was called in from a neighbor, and they had already met with 5 other real estate agents, and every real estate agent said their house was worth $1 million. They wanted to take their listing for $1 million. I was the sixth person to come in. And I looked at their house, and they'd done some remodeling, but it still looked like grandma's house. Like the kitchen was outdated, and it just looked weird to me. Had like plastic floors. Like, it's not, nobody wants to pay $1 million for plastic floors. So I said to them, look, if I could just spend about 50 or $60,000, I pretty much will guarantee you we're gonna get like $1,250,000. And they're like, really? We spend 50, you get us an extra 200? They didn't believe me. And I said, well, here's 5 names. You can call them all. I've done it 5 times before. Call all these people. And they did. I got the listing, spent $52,000, listed the house at $1,425,000 and closed for $1,555,000. So not only did I make him an extra 200,000, I made him an extra 450
Wow.
net by the time everybody was paid. And those people had 2 kids. And those 2 kids now are in college, and their college is 100% paid for because that extra $450,000 I made them. And they send me a card every year on the anniversary of their home selling, thanking me for
Wow.
changing their lives and making a difference. So I have dozens of those emails, texts, cards that people have sent me. And that's why I got to get out of bed, because it was helping somebody who couldn't see the vision and didn't have the map on how to get there. And I was able to lay it out easily, quickly, and pretty much guarantee. And what I mean by guarantee, I said, if I can't get you this, I won't take a commission. That was my guarantee. And they were like,
That's a
oh,
that's a pretty good guarantee.
yeah, it was. And then
Wow.
I played fun games with them. If I actually got more money, I got more commission. And
Yeah.
everyone's
Well, you
for that.
should. Yeah,
The
you
more money
should.
you make, they need everybody to be happy. And then that's like the biggest gift to me is those people still, they refer me friends and neighbors and clients. And so those are my best people. You help somebody, they're going to turn around and help your back. It's the scratch my back thing. And it's just worked out for me. And it just makes me feel like I've made a difference in people's
Well, and
lives.
pretty soon, one of the absolute most rewarding things that could ever happen to a realtor is you're going to get a call from someone and they're going to say, "Hey, this is little Sally. You sold my mom and dad a house for the Bernsteins or whatever. And now I'm looking for a house my mom and dad told me to call you." Right? That's like the greatest feeling in the world. And you're just like, wait a minute, Sally, aren't you like 11? I mean, I'm like, right?
Yes.
But when you get the call, right now I'm been doing this so long, I'm getting calls from the kids of people that I sold houses to now sell their kids a home. I'm like, dude, how old are you? How old
I've
am
done
I?
it
Right?
twice, and I'm not that old, but two of my clients, I've sold their houses. I have sold their children houses, which is when I first started real estate, their kids were like in elementary school.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's the best
Yeah.
feeling in the world because it's like you've stayed in those people's lives for a long ass time, right? And that meant something to them. They remembered, and now you're helping their kids. It's like it's a really rewarding thing.
Build that value. I mean, if that's one of the things I could teach my kid and all of her friends is that real estate is your ticket to financial freedom. I don't mean being an agent, I mean owning property. If I could change one thing, I would have bought houses in my 20s and not in my 30s. I would
Yep.
have tried harder to buy more real estate because every year it's not going down. We're never going to have another bank crash. We're never going to have what happened in 2008, 9, and 10 ever again. It will not happen in our lives. It might happen in our
Yeah.
children's
Well, and
lives,
the
but
thing is, like I've told my kids, they grew up in real estate. I mean, they would come into the office. Everyone on the team loved the kids, and now my one son, he's my partner in my business, and they bought his first house, I think, at 24, I think. And then Zachy now has three houses, and he is in the Air Force. He's bought them all in the Air Force, actually, which is even better because he bought them all with no money down.
VA
And
loans.
he's 29 and he's got three houses. So yeah, it's the greatest way to build wealth. You got to do it. And unfortunately, um, California especially, but I think even across a lot of the country, we're just becoming a renter's nation. It's a really tough thing, It's a lot of people don't want to make the effort to buy a house. They just think, oh, whatever. We own a property management company, and you'll get an application, and a couple will have, like $900 worth of car payments. One at 500, one at 450. The two iPhones, all this stuff, and I'm like, dude. This is why you're renting. I don't mean to be a jerk, but I'm trying to give you tough love here. It's like you got to get rid of all that crap, save up money, and get yourself a house. Otherwise, 30 years from now, you're still going to have car payments and still no house. It's like, people need, that's one of the things we always work with. I know you sell some high end homes and you sell some average homes and stuff. I almost always did entry level stuff for years. My friends would make fun of me, like, when why don't you do million dollar homes? I'm like, I love first time home buyers. I just do. I love working with them, educating them, taking the time with them, valuing them, and the referral based on first time home buyers is crazy because they're the most grateful,
Yeah.
when
And
you get them. So,
I love
so
first time home buyers, but I love them when they become a second homeowner. Because here, like especially in Los Angeles, the first time home buyer, like my friends, are usually buying like a 2 bedroom, 1 bath condo. And let's say that's for 600,000 or $700,000. It does still exist. They have that for a couple years. Nothing is better when I can sell that $600,000 condo for $1 million and they have 500,000 in cash and we can put it down on a $1.5 million house. And now they have a spouse and their payments get cut in half and they pocketed money. They can pay off all their credit cards and their smile is to their ears because they're so excited because they never thought that was possible. And, there's no other place on the planet unless you go to the roulette table in Vegas or you win the lottery that you're going to get the cash as big in one transaction as you will in real estate. And when people realize that, and if we can instill in our children and their, teens, save up for a house, who cares about the car? You can get it, that's what we have Uber for now. Like all the kids are Ubering now because if they're drinking, nobody wants to drive. It's a big no-no. So save your money. I mean, and buy a house.
Yeah, get a used car. That's what my kids did. Look, you do not need a new car. Get
No.
a used car. You don't need all this crap. Save your money, put it into real estate. But I could lecture all day on that. So, Rebecca, what is the next big move? We got our degree in geography. We've gone into movie production. We managed offices. We built offices. We become a not a flipping expert, but an equity installment advancement technician, a top real estate agent. So what is next for Rebecca?
So the next thing I'm on to right now is comes from a need for my clients coming to me asking for help. They always call me like this morning, I kid you not, I can show you on my phone. One of my clients I sold almost $3 million house to said, "Do you got a bee guy, like a person that can help take care of bees at my house?" So I have a Rolodex phone of hundreds of people, of vendors to solve problems. So people always ask me if it's anything to do with real estate. And lately, what's coming up is people are having a really hard time with their rentals. I mean, rent's really expensive, especially in Los Angeles. And if you don't get a great renter in, or you don't vet them, or, now we have this whole security deposit thing, people are losing money. So they're trying to take their income property that they've been renting and they're not making a lot of money. So my friend who I partnered with on Ladybuds, the genius behind that, I pulled her in. She's super smart, and we formed a company called Home State Homes, and we are a
Wait. What's it called?
home state homes.
Cool.
State homes. My home state is Michigan. Her home state is New York.
Hmm.
And we want to invoke the feeling when people travel, they come to us that it's like they're stepping into their house. Why would you want to rent a place? Why would you want to go to a hotel when you can have an entire house? You can have a ping pong table, a pool table, a jacuzzi, a kitchen. You can bring all your friends over. That would cost you thousands of dollars. Instead, you can stay at one of our places for a few $100s a night. So we recognize this niche of taking people who are long-term rentals or LTRs and turning them into midterm rentals, which is 30 days plus, and taking them down to short-term rentals. And we can take a property, I help analyze it for them and see what's a good fit and present our clients solutions, what would be best for them and how we can maximize their profit. And sometimes it'll take, my design eye of going in there and saying, "Hey, your place is great, but maybe, you're only getting 3,000 a month right now. If I do these little tweaks, it's only going to cost you 5 grand. Would you do this for me? I can get you this amount of money and we're going to do this with it." And so I put my money where my mouth is. We have 5 properties right now, and I own a couple of them. She owns one of them, and we're about to buy another one. But it's one of these things that just was born out of necessity of my clients and people around me saying there's a need for this. And they don't want to deal with the people that are big management companies because it's expensive. You own a property management company,
Yep.
but you probably do midterms and long terms, where the short term thing, California has a lot of law. So we're not in California. We're also in Michigan. We're in Florida. We're about to be in Colorado. We're going to be all over the country helping people. We don't make a lot of money, but I'm going to streamline and systematize the SOPs in order to help my friends, family, and colleagues make more money on the short term
Well,
rental.
there's a lot to that. And, like I told you, my son and I, with our property management company, we don't do short-term rental at all. It's
Yeah.
really a tough game. I mean, short-term rental is hard work. But the commissions, some people pay like 40% to the agency or to a person to manage their short term because it's such a pain in the ass, right? So there's a lot of turnover, there's a lot of expense to the short term, and we just don't want to get into it, so we do the long term. However, like you said, there's a lot of money to be made for the owner if they
Yes.
can get a good niche in the short term and not pay so much money to a management company. So what you're doing is you're finding people who were doing long term and saying, let's clean this thing up, let's furnish it, and let's do more of a vacation rental Airbnb type thing.
Yes, and let me handle it. It's not really us handling it. We have a whole team of people in every city that we're in that handles it. So we have our managers, we have our cleaners, we have our handymen, we have all of those people. So it's streamlined and systematized. So it's taken care of. We don't make a ton of money, but what we do is have happy clients. And most of my happy clients, after their first property, they have a second one. And after the second one, they have a vacation one. So many of my clients have a place in LA, they have a place in Big Bear, and they have a place in Myrtle Beach, and they're trying to make money and they're in it for the long-term gain of what that property is going to be worth 30 years from now because they bought it for a reason. They didn't buy it so they could retire and give it to their kids when they die. They bought it so they could do something like buy their dream home in Italy. So they
Mhm.
have an end game. And so this again, going back to the mapping cartography thing, I am able to take them, have an interview with them, literally have a sit down consultation and give them our 10 cents of what we think is best. It might not be short term rentals, it could be midterms because of the laws, it could be long terms. And here's why. We took a property we have right now in West Hollywood, and the people were only getting like $2,000 a month in rent. I took that property, spending a little bit of money. We're going to be making $6,000 a month by making a few tweaks. $4,000
That's better.
that's a lot better. So those people are making 2 grand and now they're going to be making 3,500. So I just made them $1,500 extra and they didn't have to spend one dime because
Yeah.
I did all the work. I hired all the people. We did everything. I get paid back all my original investment. And then once we're out of that loss carry forward, it's a split of the profits. And they're so happy because the bottom line is they just step back and literally I check in with them 15 minutes, not even every month. Hey, how are you doing? Everything's great with the property. Nothing really goes wrong. And when something does, I have a system to fix it and it's all like systematized. So
And,
it's
and
not
the truth of the matter is, like you said, I mean, you don't make a ton of money on each one of these things, but that's not the idea. The idea is you're building clientele for the future. They're either going to buy something else or they're going to sell something they have. You're going to get either one of those transactions. And a lot of a little bit is better than a whole bunch of nothing, right? That's what I always tell my
first
kids
quotes ever.
as we're
50%
doing this, right?
better than 100% of nothing all day long.
Exactly.
But
So like when we're doing our property management, it's like, listen, if you're making 150 bucks, 200, 400, $500 a month, whatever per each property, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but you've got 100 properties, 200 properties, 300 properties, all of a sudden you're like, well, holy crap, that starts adding up, right? But
yeah,
the bottom line is to be able to service these people, because if you're not giving them that service, you're not taking care of these properties, you're not doing what you say, that money's not going to come to you. So you're fulfilling a need and doing it right. Are you going to franchise this thing? Are you going to take it countrywide and franchise it?
we are countrywide right now. I mean, we have a property in Michigan. We have 2 properties in Florida that we're managing. We have properties here in LA and soon to be, we're kind of all over the place. But again, we just are starting out because there's this need. And I am doing it because it's creating an income that's going to buy my time back. I work 60 hours a week now with a 7-year-old. And sometimes it can be really hard. I don't want to work 60 hours for the rest of my life. I don't think I'll ever retire, but the passive income, we will spend a lot of time. We have spent a lot of time, months, getting the systems up and running so everything is perfect. So it's kind of like the Ron Popeil, like set it and forget it with the chickens. The same thing happens. If I have 10 properties, let's just say in Boulder, Colorado, I have the people that are going to handle all those 10 properties, like the same cleaners, the same handyman, the same person who's going to pick up my people from the airport. We're going to create and craft curated experiences for people like they've never had. And they're going to choose my clients' places to stay in rather than staying in a hotel. We're servicing a need that people are asking me for. So I don't need to franchise. I don't need my license to do it in any other state. So it's not a licensed thing. But the cool part is, let's say I do buy 10 properties in Colorado, or handle my clients' properties. When they buy or sell, I have the agents, and then we'll get referrals on that back and forth. So we have people everywhere. And I've been an agent long enough where my Rolodex of agents are all over the country. And just like you said, I don't want to handle short term because I know, like out in the desert, there are strict rules. Like Palm Springs, you have to stay a minimum of 3 days. It's a bunch of baloney. And here we can't go under 30 days at any condo or apartment. So we are targeting houses of people that are only making a certain amount a month. And I'm like, well, what if I could double that? Like literally, you're making 3,000. What if I could make you $6,000? And we take a small portion of that, and you do none of the work. And everyone's like scratching their head, going, that sounds amazing. And so we are building financial freedom and wealth for us so that one day that I won't have to work 60 hours. And literally, I own 5 properties. The 4 that I have rented, I don't even spend 10 minutes a month, Gary. They're they're like taking care of themselves. I have wonderful people come, everything's going really. When something goes wrong, yes, we have to fix it. But
Yeah.
happens in the house that I'm sitting in right now. If a pipe bursts, I still have to call the plumber. It's the same thing. But how often does a pipe burst? Not a lot. But guess what? If a pipe bursts at one of my places, they're not calling me. They know who to call. It's being handled by somebody else. So yes, I give away a lot of the profits, but at the end of the day, it's financial freedom. And I think it's a niche that we are missing. And I love that my real estate can just segue into that. But plus, I love to be fancy and creative. I'm like taking people's places that aren't so great and making an experience out of it. How would you like to come to a place that you've never been? I'll just mention a town in Michigan. You want to go to Coldwater, Michigan. You never even heard of Coldwater. It's where my summer home was my whole life growing up. And you stepped into a house on a lake, and the whole entire house
Oh man.
was all about the Detroit Lions. Like they're going to win the Super Bowl this year. I'm from Detroit. So, and that was your thing, and you were born and raised there. You're going to pay extra money to go to my Lions Den. You are. And people want that experience. And there's going to be cornhole with the Detroit Lions. Like we're going to give them something that's fun and their kids are going to talk about for the rest of their lives. How do I know? Because we've already done it and it's
I
already
want to I want to go stay there. And I'm a
okay.
big Lions
Good.
fan. You guys took my quarterback. When he signed with the Rams, that's my team. And then you freaking traded with Matt Stafford. I like Matt Stafford. He's a great guy. He's a good quarterback. But it's like, why
Jared
did you
Goff.
get rid of Jared Goff?
Jared Goff.
Right? 16, man. I'm like, dude, why did you make that trade? Now we're gonna suffer for it. But well, that's really exciting stuff. Now, your daughter, Evan, is 7 years old.
He's 7.
And so is she following mom around and picking up some of this energy and this entrepreneurial spirit, or do you keep her away from all this crap?
My gosh. So because, I was sort of in this world where I couldn't, when you're a real estate agent, you know this, you can't stop working. We stop working, we don't get a paycheck, and we don't get a paycheck every day, week, or month. We're on a 90-day cycle. So like sitting here doing this podcast today, maybe somebody will hear this podcast in 90 days, pick up the phone and call you, say, hey Gary, how do I get a hold of that woman who did the short-term rental thing? Like that's how it works. So if I stop working, I don't get paid. When I had Evan, I birthed at home in Culver City. And a couple weeks after I birthed, I was right back at it. And I remember taking her in her carrier, and she would go everywhere. I have hundreds of pictures of her. She was at open houses with me, and she is the cutest thing ever at 7. And she was cute at every single age. But she's like my number one fan. She loves coming to work with me. And to my surprise, when you go to kindergarten, like or when she's in second grade now, they give you a little board and you write on it and you say, my name is Evan and I'm 5. And when I grew up, I want to be, it was 5, a ballerina, and my favorite color is pink. Well, then first grade came and it got, when I want to grow up, I want to be a singer because she likes to sing. And, my favorite color is blue. Well, this year, to my surprise, I didn't have the board. She comes home from school with a piece of paper and it says, when I grow up, I want to be a real estate agent. A little tear came down my eye. I was actually surprised. And I said, Evan, do you really want to be a real estate agent? She goes, yeah. And I go, how come? And she goes, because mom, every time we go to a house, it's so happy. And every house you sell or every house that you're selling, I want to live in. So my little choked up heart, whenever I do a project or I'm doing a flip, she's been there when it's been awful. And then she's been there when it's torn apart. And she's sitting at the Harry Potter closet underneath the stairs and going, can you make one of these for me? Sure, honey, I can build you anything you want. I built her a bunk bed. She's got an awesome, like double-sized loft bed that we built. Like whatever she wants, I'm going to try to give it to her. But I've made it fun. And she's told all of her friends that she wants to be a real estate agent. They're like, what's that? She's like, people that sell your house that you live in. And then what do the kids say? We don't own our house. Like they're renters. And so then
So
now she's
you
like, you
call
should
them.
call my mom. You should call my mom. I would love to groom her to take over my business, but
Well,
you
you
know,
got to, first of all, you got to get her a little business card holder. So you could say to to the friends, say, I'm going to give you a referral fee when you hand your friends, mom and dad, the card.
well, she's great when I take her anywhere. She comes to open houses. I mean, I don't like have her there because I have her there. I have her there because she will listen to me. She'll talk to people, but it's more like a side hustle or an accoutrement. But the fact that she likes to be there and she likes talking to people, she honestly though is she's like me, but she's not like me. She is a creative. She would rather sing than talk. So like she sings like all day long. The teacher calls us up. She's singing too much in school. Like, so I don't know, maybe she'll be a Broadway star and a real estate agent, but she knows that this pays the bills. And she knows how hard I work, and she loves seeing my projects come to fruition from the beginning to end. We walked into my last flip I did, and she was there the first day we bought the house, and then she was there when it was destroyed and it was in construction. When I brought her back, I have a video on my Instagram. I'm like holding her and I'm twirling her around in a circle. I'm like, this is the reason I do this, because the joy that it brought to see her walk in the door. She's like, Mom, I've never been here. That's what she said to me. Never been here. I said, yes, you have. And I like flipped through the pictures. Here you are the first day we bought it. Here you are in construction. It was unrecognizable. And yeah, she's 7, but that's like, I did something right. And she tells everybody, my mom designed and did this house, and she's just so cute about it. And it's like, what can't you love? I love what I do because I know in the end, I help bring joy to somebody, either the buyer, the seller, myself, whatever it was, it's bringing joy to whoever comes around. And she sees that, and you can't make that up. I couldn't pay her to say that.
No,
She
that's
feels.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, you've been so gracious with your time. I know you're super busy. We've gone on here, but I always ask because you said the word "what if you could," which is the podcast title. But I never give people the heads up that I'm going to ask them this because I kind of want it to come from the heart. But I always ask people at the end of the podcast. I always say, if there's one message, one feeling, one thought, what's something, a motto that you've always had, or it doesn't have to relate to real estate, anything, just a belief you have. If you wanted to share with someone and leave us one last thought before we signed off, what would that be?
I try not to get too religious, but I'll go back to the Bible. One of the things that has changed my life since moving to California is that I knew I could do anything with a little bit of faith. One of my favorite Bible verses, I've little tweaked a little, but with faith the size of a mustard seed,
That's
I have
awesome.
moved mountains.
Yeah.
And by having that faith and that knowingness that I could do that, it's what's gotten me here. Every single thing in my life, from my homes to my kid, to my business, to starting a new business, to my car, to my friends, to being able to travel so much, is because my faith never, ever wavered. And I think about that all the time. I think a lot of people don't believe in themselves. If you can believe it, if you can see it, you can dream it. And if you can dream it, you can do it. And that's what's gotten me here. And I'm so grateful and blessed for this life that I have.
Well, you've shown that, young lady, throughout your lifetime. You've like George Michael says, you got to have faith. And you've thrown that sucker out there, man. You hop in that VW bug and head to the evil California where dreams go to die. And you came and you made it work. I just have one last question. I know that's usually my last
Sure.
question, but what is your family's nationality?
My dad, our last name, they're Yugoslavian, which Yugoslavia does not exist anymore. But Sekulich is a Yugoslavian name, and my dad's parents were fresh off the boat from Yugoslavia. He was born in the United States, and yeah, that's where we come from. And my mother was Welsh, so that's my kid's name is half Welsh and half Serbian. My dad's name was Ivan. My mother's name was Sue Ellen. So Evan is Ivan in Welsh.
Wow. That
Yeah.
that's awesome because my first wife who's passed, um, her father was Yugoslavian. And now
Cool.
it's Croatia, Montenegro,
Serbia.
and Dubrovnik, and
Serbia.
yeah. And he's bitter. He's still bitter about that. Very, very bitter because he's Yugoslavian, right? He just is not happy about how that whole thing went down.
No, you don't say. We don't say we're Serbian or Croatian. That isn't.
No,
No,
you
yeah,
say
we're
Yugoslavian.
Yugo.
Yeah, exactly,
We're
exactly.
Yugo, like the
But
car.
yeah, because you have a there's a certain work ethic that a lot of people have that came here with it, right? And a lot of people born here don't have it. It's a weird phenomenon, right, with that. But anyways, I love your faith. I think it's very special. It doesn't have to be religious. It doesn't make you a Bible thumper. It makes you have a faith that, you put it out there and you believe it enough, like, it's going to happen, and who is it? Earl Nightingale says, if you, whatever you can achieve and believe and conceive, you can achieve, right? So you've done that. Rebecca, you've been wonderful. Um, your story's great. You've done so much. You are the SaaS master. We did catch the S on the end of that. And I'm just so grateful for your time. You're an inspiration. You've done so much. There's a lot of stuff we didn't touch on, but people, they need to know that you're a real inspiration. You really are talking your talk, walking your walk, and that's awesome, kiddo. I'm proud of you. It's
Thank you, Gary. Such a
really
pleasure.
special.
Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it and love chatting with you and our connection that we have. Even we're in the same state in two different cities, so it's wonderful to get to know you even more. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for having me.
Well, I've got a feeling we'll probably talk in other forms too, because we'll probably end up knowing people to do other stuff together. So I'm sure
Yeah,
we'll work together in some other.
there's got to be a part two to this. We
Exactly.
can touch on like the two big things, and we can get to that next time.
I can't wait. I can't wait. So, all right, my friend, thank you so much for
Thank you so
coming
much.
on the show. Now, what we're going to do is, if you, even though we're going to put it on the podcast, how can people reach you, Rebecca, if they want to? You've got an Instagram, you got a website, you got all the stuff. You want to share some of that real quick before we go?
Yeah, absolutely. Like now it's all about Instagram. So my Instagram is House of Sekulich, which is my last name. So like House of Gucci, but House of Sekulich, and that's Sekulich. That's my Instagram handle. I'm also on Facebook, of course. I have my own Rebecca Sukulich YouTube channel. I'm on TikTok as Rebecca Sukulich. It's all there. If you just Google my name, you can pretty much find everything. I have many websites. We have homestatehomes.com. I have sekulichhomes.com. We don't need to confuse anybody. If you find me in one place, everything's linked up. And I'm
So
on
we
LinkedIn.
can find you, basically, is what you're
You
saying.
can't. My name is so unique. There's only one more Rebecca Sukulich on the planet, and she lives in Perth, and she's about half my age, and she's blonde. Not to get confused, but some people think she might be my kid. But there's really only one me, especially if you put the word real estate or home. You'll just get it. It comes up instantly.
We'll find you. We'll track you down. We'll get this posted on all that good stuff. And then people will pour in to see you. Not that they already aren't, but even more. So, all right, kiddo. Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
you. Talk to you soon.
Have a great day.
You too. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.